What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I'm your host, JT. I want to apologize in advance if the audio sounds a little bit off. I've been in a fierce war against the flu over the last couple of days. I'm almost at full strength, but I'm not there quite yet at the moment. I'm probably around 85 to 88% at full health. Still dealing with the random coughs and sneezes. I'm congested like hell, but the show must go on. This is our flu game, and it's only right that we drop 50 on this episode. We got a good one on tap for y'all. For the first time in forever, I actually have something good to say about a move that the Raiders have made, hiring Chip Kelly as their new offensive coordinator. Justin Fields is the Steelers' only answer at quarterback this year. I want to explain my reasons why. The Bengals made a big move recently that surprisingly nobody is paying any attention to. And it's shocking that this move isn't being talked about because this is going to have a great impact on Zach Taylor's fate with Cincinnati's franchise as the head coach. And then I want to give some thoughts on Bo Nix. Have we already seen him reach his ceiling in Denver? And how good is Shedeur Sanders going to be in the NFL? Is he going to be a bust, or is he going to be able to live up to the name on the back of his jersey? Before we dive into it, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. Remember, we are not just the YouTube channel, by the way. We are a podcast. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcast from. The JT Sports Podcast is available. The links are down in the description and pinned comment section below. Give us a 5-star review if you enjoy, and let's dive into it. Over the last year or so, I've started to gain this reputation of being a well-known hater of the Las Vegas Raiders. And every time I talk about the Raiders, I always have nothing but negative things to say about this team. But for the first time in forever, I'm actually really excited about the hiring the Raiders just made of Chip Kelly as their new offensive coordinator. Chip Kelly is going to do a fantastic job calling plays for Pete Carroll in Vegas. This is one of the most innovative offensive minds in the history of football. Not just college football, but in the NFL and college football combined. Chip Kelly has completely revolutionized the game of football. Think about what college football used to be when Chip Kelly was the head coach at Oregon. He was the only coach at the time that was running this spread, no huddle offense. And after he left Oregon to take the Eagles head coaching job, all of college football started implementing or having their own version of what Chip Kelly's spread, no huddle offense was. And once he got to the NFL, you know, when he started to run that college spread offense that people swore wasn't going to work in the NFL, well, it had a little bit of success. He went to the playoffs as the Eagles head coach. And after he got fired, you know, the rest of the league started stealing his concepts. You started seeing more implementations of RPOs, read options, more design quarterback runs. Like, the impact and influence that Chip Kelly has had on the game of football extends far from just college football. There have been plenty of coaches in this league that have been heavily influenced from Chip Kelly's offenses. And for Pete Carroll to get such a big-time hire as his offensive coordinator is a giant green check mark for me. In terms of when I'm looking at my checklist for things that Pete Carroll needs to have in order for him to successfully rebuild the Raiders and to do it fast, you got to get the offensive coordinator hire right. And you can make the argument that Chip Kelly may be the best play caller that Pete Carroll has ever had as a head coach in the NFL. Now, obviously, when he was coaching college football at USC, he had some really good coordinators, had a really great staff, but hiring Chip Kelly was probably one of the best offensive coordinators that you could have gotten considering what's available on the open market. What you're going to get out of Chip Kelly is somebody that is going to find a bunch of innovative ways to get the ball to his playmakers out in space. And Chip Kelly, what has changed about his philosophy over the last couple of years since he was last at Oregon to going to the NFL to going back to college, becoming the head coach at UCLA, taking the demotion to become the OC at Ohio State, what has changed over the years about Chip Kelly is that he went from being a guy that you thought was just all finesse, not about physicality, to becoming more about establishing a physical style of play by getting the run game going, being dominant on the line of scrimmage. That's what Ohio State was this season. It wasn't just a team that was just throwing the football all over the field for 400, 500 yards. They got really great play out of their running backs. And for a team in Las Vegas that is lacking in the personnel department right now, I can only imagine what Chip Kelly is going to cook up with what the Raiders are going to be able to bring in free agency and in the draft, because the team that they have right now is not the team that they're going to have when the 2025 season kicks off. They got $95 million in cap space, which is the second most in the NFL. They could sign Sam Darnold. I could see Chip Kelly cooking with Sam Darnold. He could cook with T. Higgins. If you bring him in free agency, you improve the offensive line, that could help. He's definitely going to help get that run game going. The Raiders' rushing attack last year was piss poor terrible. They couldn't get 100 yards to save their lives if it counted on it. Chip Kelly is going to improve all the areas of the Raiders' offense that has sucked over these last couple of years. And going from Luke Getsy to Chip Kelly is like going from broke to rich overnight. That's how much of a massive improvement the Raiders have just made with the hiring of Chip Kelly. You actually have somebody that knows what he's doing calling the plays. And just because he didn't work out as the Eagles head coach doesn't mean that he's going to suck calling plays in the NFL. Like, there's been plenty of coaches that have sucked as head coaches, and they've been really good coordinators. And Chip Kelly, for as good as a job as what he has done at Ohio State, I feel that should only translate to success in the NFL, because he already pretty much damn near had an NFL team at Ohio State. And it's not like you're telling this dude to run the team. You're only telling this dude to call the plays. And there's a few college coaches that have gone from being good head coaches in college to good coordinators in the NFL. Prime example, the Packers defensive coordinator, Jeff Hafley. He was the head coach of Boston College last year. So if Jeff Hafley can have a good transition coaching college ball to becoming a coordinator in the NFL, same thing can happen for Chip Kelly. What about the Chargers' current defensive coordinator, Jesse Minter? He was Jim Harbaugh's defensive coordinator at Michigan, and he brought him along with him when he made that jump from college to pro again. And look how good the Chargers defense played this season versus how bad they looked under Brandon Staley. And most of the players that Brandon Staley had were the same players that Jesse Minter had to work with. So there's been plenty of examples of guys who have coached college football, who have been great coordinators, making the jump to the NFL level. Chip Kelly, with how much experience he has, how much influence he has had on the evolution of the NFL game, you know, this just makes this hire so much more better when you zoom out and you ignore Pete Carroll's age. Yeah, he's going to be the oldest coach in the NFL, but he's assembling a great staff. And for a guy his age, your staff is everything, because how much can you really handle yourself? How much can you really do by yourself on a day-to-day basis. You know, for Pete Carroll to be this age, he probably is going to have to rely more on his staff than he ever has, because his staff may be able to help him from kind of falling off. Because for all we know, Pete Carroll could be Joe Biden of head coaches in the NFL. Not saying he is, but I'm not ruling it out. There's a reason why Seattle parted ways with Pete Carroll. He was a little bit outdated, and hiring Chip Kelly was not just a safe hire, but a hire that Pete Carroll knows is going to work. At worst, the Raiders' offense should be a bottom 20 unit. You know, I'm expecting this offense to be at least above average at the bare worst with Chip Kelly taking this offensive coordinator job. This was a fantastic hire by the Las Vegas Raiders, and one of the few moves that this franchise has made over the last couple of years that I'm actually a huge fan of. Justin Fields is the Steelers' only answer at quarterback for this year. Last season, in his brief action as the starter, he led the Steelers to a 4-2 record on top of the AFC North, and he had 10 total touchdowns to only 1 interception. His completion percentage improved. His decision-making improved. I feel really encouraged by the development we saw out of Justin Fields his first year suiting up in the black and gold. Now in year 2, you have somebody that had pretty much an entire season to learn from a veteran quarterback in Russell Wilson, who's a former Super Bowl champion, and you're entering what should be your second season in the same system under offensive coordinator Arthur Smith. And Arthur Smith, I felt, was at his best calling plays when he had Justin Fields in that quarterback, because his athleticism allowed him to be more creative with the play calling. He was able to use design quarterback runs to make the ground game more effective. You saw the ground game as the season continued to war on with Russell Wilson as the QB1. It got progressively worse. And that's because Russell Wilson isn't the same athlete that Justin Fields is. And Justin Fields, with another year in Arthur Smith's system, that should help him feel a lot more comfortable with setting the protections, being able to change plays, call audibles. When Russell Wilson took over at quarterback, it was pretty apparent that Mike Tomlin had more faith in him at quarterback than what he did with Justin Fields, because when Justin Fields started for the Steelers at QB this year, he was handicapped. The Steelers put shackles on him because they were scared. They were scared to allow Justin Fields to be the player that he was in Chicago, so dynamic, being able to generate a lot of big plays in the passing game with how accurate and how beautiful his deep ball is. You know, there were games that Justin Fields had with the Chicago Bears where he just single-handedly took over. If the Steelers can unlock Justin Fields' full potential in 2025, not only will that end their very long playoff drought, but it also will help Mike Tomlin figure out what's been a revolving door for so many years at quarterback. Ever since Big Ben hung up the cleats, the Steelers could finally have a long-term answer at quarterback. And listen, if Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith, and Sam Darnold can have late career success, there's a great chance that Justin Fields could follow in a similar path in 2025 if the Steelers run it back with him this year. I don't see any better options in free agency that the Steelers can afford. Like Sam Darnold, you could break the bank on him, but then you're not going to have as much money to spend to improve the defense, to improve the receiving core, the offensive line, running back. You know, the Steelers will be better suited if they just went all in on building around Justin Fields, because it's a cheaper option. You get so much upside with Justin Fields that you might not get if you get a guy like a Sam Darnold or Aaron Rodgers. But what makes Justin Fields worth gambling on, if you're the Steelers and you don't know if you should roll with him or Russell Wilson, is that there still is so much about Justin Fields that we just don't know. And if you're Mike Tomlin, you've already seen everything that you are going to see out of Russell Wilson. We know what he is at this point. He's a decent starting quarterback at this stage of his career. He may be able to win you 5 or 6 games, but unless you just have an all-around elite supporting cast around them, you got a great play caller, elite offensive line, elite receivers. Unless you have elite everything around Russell Wilson, you're going to be nothing close to being a playoff team or Super Bowl contender with him at the helm. Justin Fields, though, is still a huge mystery because he's entering like his 5th, 6th season in the league, and we still don't know what this guy is. Is he a bust? Is he not a bust? Can he actually play? Can he develop? If there ever was a year for Justin Fields to put it all together, 2025 would be it. Mike Tomlin, in his exit press conferences, he has said several times that athletic ability, the ability to improvise, extend plays, use your legs to get out of trouble is really important when it comes to how he's evaluating the quarterback position for Pittsburgh moving forward. And with that hint that he has been dropping, I think it's pretty apparent that Justin Fields is going to be the Steelers' answer at quarterback this year. And unless they can get Aaron Rodgers or Sam Darnold without overpaying for him, I say why not bring it back with Justin Fields? If Mike Tomlin can make it to the playoffs with Kenny Pickett and a washed Russell Wilson, you mean to tell me that he couldn't make it to the playoffs and possibly win a playoff game with Justin Fields with all of the untapped potential he still has that we have yet to see? Like Mike Tomlin, if you're winning 9-10 games with these randos at quarterback, imagine what you could be if you start Justin Fields in 2025 and he ends up having one of those seasons like a Baker Mayfield or a Geno Smith when he just revives his career because he's in the perfect situation. What does a Justin Fields at his full potential look like on the Pittsburgh Steelers? How better would he make this team? Because to me, if Justin Fields looks anything like we've seen out of Baker, Geno Smith, and Sam Darnold these last couple of years, the Steelers are without a doubt a threat to not only win the AFC North again next year, but they could be a dark horse Super Bowl contender because the only thing that is keeping the Steelers away from having that success that they desire so much come playoff time is that they don't have a franchise quarterback. When you watch them play against the Buffalo Bills in the wild card round and the previous year's playoffs, it was pretty apparent what the big difference was in that game. It wasn't the coaching, it wasn't the defense, it wasn't really the talent. It's just that one team had an elite quarterback, the other didn't. Same thing with this past year's wild card round loss to the Baltimore Ravens. The difference was that one team had LaMarvelous and the other team had Russell Wilson. So if the Steelers can get Justin Fields to reach his full potential, listen, I think a lot of things could change for Mike Tomlin, and this is definitely a gamble worth taking because there's nobody else better that the Steelers could get. Like maybe Aaron Rodgers could be a nice bridge quarterback for a year, but I don't think he would be the long-term answer. Justin Fields still has a lot of youth on his sides, and listen, I think that if you're Mike Tomlin and your job is on the line when it comes to you remaining in Pittsburgh, your best chance to save it is going with Justin Fields. The upside with the arm strength, the mobility, it's just too promising to pass up on if you're him, in my opinion. The Cincinnati Bengals have a new defensive coordinator. His name is Al Golden, who comes from Notre Dame. He's been the defensive coordinator of the Fighting Irish for the last couple of years. He also has some ties to the Bengals organization. And this was a really good hire because Al Golden did a fantastic job with that Notre Dame defense this past season. They were third in points per game allowed. They were 10th in yards per game allowed. And they were fourth against the pass. And last year, the sole reason why the Bengals wasted Joe Burrow's MVP season is because the defense, time in and time out, always let him down. They were 25th in points per game and yards per game allowed. The red zone defense was an abomination. They couldn't do anything. They couldn't stop the run. They couldn't stop the pass. They couldn't stop you, me, or even my grandpa if they was out there on offense. That's how bad Cincinnati looked defensively. And if Al Golden ends up being the right hire to replace Lou Anarumo, then Zach Taylor is going to remain the head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals for the next 5 to 7 years. But if Al Golden turns out to be a whiff and an incredibly bad hire by Zach Taylor, Al Golden is going to cost Zach Taylor his job. This is one of the most important hires that has been made throughout the entirety of this offseason when it comes to just staff hires. If we just remove the head coaching hires and we just focus on who's getting hired as OC, DC for all of these coordinator vacancies, this was one of the most important ones, because if the defense still continues to struggle, how are you going to be able to stop Lamar Jackson and the Ravens next season? How are you going to find a way to slow down the Steelers if they can get the quarterback situation figured out? You know, it's just so tough to win when you have to ask a guy in Joe Burrow to play flawless football in the conference that's home to majority of the NFL's top quarterbacks. It's just hard to win this way, which is why the hiring of Al Golden is so important when it comes to deciding if Zach Taylor is going to be the head coach in Cincinnati after this year. Because if this hire pans out, then we definitely could see the Cincinnati Bengals right back in the AFC Conference Championship game. We could see the Patrick Mahomes stopper right back where he belongs in the playoffs. But if Al Golden ends up being worse than what Lou Anarumo was, it's going to have disastrous results. Not only are we going to see Zach Taylor get fired, but we could see the Bengals picking top 5 in the draft next year. That's how bad things could get. So Al Golden has Zach Taylor's job security in his hands. If he works out like how Jeff Hafley did for LaFleur and the Packers this past season, because remember, he was the head coach of Boston College, and then he ended up dipping to take the Packers defensive coordinator job, and they had a top 12, top 10 defense this year, and that's with them missing their best player, Jair Alexander, for the majority of this season. So if Zach Taylor has truly gotten it right with Al Golden, then I have no question that he's going to be the head coach until the end of time, because the Bengals are just one of those franchises that they're okay with good enough. They don't care if Zach Taylor wins in the playoffs or not, although I feel he should be able to win with Joe Burrow, but all they care is that you can consistently produce good results. And if Zach Taylor can get the Bengals back into the playoffs, even if they don't ever come close to winning a Super Bowl again, the Bengals will be okay with that. But if they don't make it to the postseason this year, I feel like Al Golden is going to be the straw or the hump that broke the camel's back, because this is a really important hire. Bo Nix was the first rookie quarterback to start a season opener for the Broncos since John Elway, and he didn't disappoint in his rookie season. He ended the Broncos' 8-year playoff drought, and he finally gave this franchise long-term stability at the quarterback position. And with how great Jaden Daniels was in his first season, it greatly overshadowed how good Bo Nix was this season. Yeah, Jaden Daniels carried the Washington Commanders to being one game shy of making it to the Super Bowl, but Bo Nix wasn't too far off. He had a 21-7 touchdown interception ratio during the second half of the NFL season. He was one of the hottest quarterbacks in the league during this span, and he looked like the second coming of Drew Brees. More athletic, stronger arm, but you still see the similarities in their games. They get the ball out fast. They're really accurate throwers off the ball. I do not feel like the Denver Broncos have seen the tip of how good Bo Nix is about to be. Bo Nix has not even come close to peaking under Sean Payton. The sky is the limit because Bo Nix next season could easily put himself in the MVP discussion. Normally, year 2 is when you see young quarterbacks make the biggest jumps in their career. Joe Burrow went to the Super Bowl in year 2. Lamar Jackson won MVP in his second season. Bo Nix, with the coaching that he's receiving from Sean Payton, there's no reason why he shouldn't be a top 7, top 8 quarterback at the end of 2025. I am so impressed with just how well Bo Nix was able to elevate a Broncos team that had relatively low expectations coming into 2024. They had an over-under win total of 5.5 wins. The roster wasn't that good. They just came off one of the biggest dead cap hits in NFL history, kicking Russell Wilson to the curb. And there weren't too many people who even thought that Bo Nix was worth being a first-round pick to begin with. And Bo Nix and Sean Payton, not only did they prove everybody wrong, but they showed why the AFC West is about to start making things really complicated for the Kansas City Chiefs, because why the AFC West has been so easy for Kansas City to win over these last couple of years is because the coaching hasn't been as good as what it is now, and 2, the quarterback play hasn't been as good as what it is now. I mean, yeah, you've had Justin Herbert in this division for a while, but other than that, you had Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew, and Derek Carr. You had whoever the Broncos were throwing out there at quarterback until Bo Nix came around. Now that the Broncos finally have their franchise quarterback, they now can focus on building the rest of their team around Bo Nix. They have money to spend in free agency. They got some good draft capital. Next year, you could see the Denver Broncos put themselves in the Super Bowl conversation with how well Bo Nix is going to play. I expect Bo Nix to play MVP level football in 2025 when the season kicks off. If you can take a Broncos team that was expected to be one of the 5 worst teams in the NFL this past season and lead them to the playoffs, imagine what you're going to do with a better roster with household names at receiver. Outside of Courtland Sutton, none of you guys, unless you're a Broncos fan, could name more than 2 receivers on this roster. Devon Vele, you got the dude out of Oregon. That's about it. So for a team that had pretty much nobody to throw to on offense for Bo Nix outside of Courtland Sutton, the dude balled out. Just completely balled out. I remember watching him dominate the Atlanta Falcons. It was just seamless. He was just perfect. Passes not even hitting the ground. It looked like he was throwing routes against air against the New Orleans Saints in that Thursday night game that eventually led to them firing their former head coach Dennis Allen. There have been games where Bo Nix has looked like Drew Brees, but on crack. The athleticism compared to Drew Brees is night and day, and the arm strength, just the overall physical traits that Bo Nix has made him look so promising to the point where I'm willing to bet it all that the Broncos end up making it to an AFC championship game within the next 2-3 years, because Bo Nix, yeah, he's a lot older than what you would like your second-year QB to be, but with him getting coached up by Sean Payton, one of the greatest minds in NFL history, if you thought that Bo Nix peaked in 2024 with what he did during his rookie season, you haven't saw nothing yet for what's to come in 2025, because the team around him is only going to get better. He's only going to get better as he continues to grow and develop as a quarterback in the NFL. And Sean Payton is going to put more on him during his second offseason than what he did as a rookie, because it's a difference once you're trying to, get acclimated to the speed of the NFL game versus when you finally understand it all. I felt like after that loss to the Steelers was Bo Nix, I finally understand it moment. That's when things started to click for him. So Bo Nix, I think the best is yet to come with him, and I'm expecting a monstrous 2025 campaign out of him. I want to debunk the biggest lie being told about the NFL right now, which is the league is rigging games in favor of Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, which couldn't be anything further from the truth. Look, there are 32 owners in the NFL. You think that all of the other 31 owners are okay with just allowing the Kansas City Chiefs to win? I think that the owner of the Baltimore Ravens, the Steelers, the Bengals, whoever, want to win just as much as what the Chiefs do. So what makes the Chiefs so special that they get preferential treatment to win guaranteed Super Bowls, to have the outcome of games rigged in their favor, and nobody else is warranted of this? You feel me? Like, this just doesn't seem like an argument that is rooted in good faith. I think the reason why people are running with this conspiracy theory that the NFL is rigged for the Chiefs to win is because you're tired of their dominance. You know what the old saying is: you either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And there was a point where all of us were rooting for Patrick Mahomes to take down the Sith Lord that was Tom Brady. All for Patrick Mahomes to become the new Sith Lord of the NFL himself. So Patrick Mahomes went from being the guy, the Chiefs went from being the team that everybody was rooting for to becoming the team that everybody is hating on and rooting for them to lose and rooting for their demise. And the easy explanation for this is because people hate to see sustained success. We've seen it in the NBA. Everybody wanted Steph Curry and the Splash Brothers to get their first NBA Finals, to get their first championship. But once they got another one and Kevin Durant got added to the mix, people started hating on the Warriors. Same thing with LeBron James. When LeBron James was the underdog, before he was a villain, before he made a decision, he was a hero. The kid from Akron. Then he leaves the Cavs, goes to South Beach, becomes the villain of the NBA, becomes the most hated player in the league as well, because he's in the finals damn near every single year. You want to know what's been insane about this Mahomes, Andy Reid regime in KC? It's the fact that every single year that Mahomes has been a starting quarterback, he's come no game short of at least making it to the Super Bowl. Or he's come at least one game close of making it to the Super Bowl. Do you know how insane it is to hear that? You mean that ever since you've been the full-time starter in your second season, what's considered a down year for you is losing in the AFC Championship game? You come one step close of making it to the biggest game of the year? Not just that, but you're on the precipice of three-peating, something that has never been done in NFL history. It's understandable why everybody is jealous of the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm jealous. I'm a Steelers fan. I hate to see the Chiefs continuing to dominate everybody in the playoffs. It makes the NFL a little bit boring, because what's the point of watching these games if you know that Kansas City is going to win? What if Kansas City wins 4 or 5 straight Super Bowls? You know, this could be a Michael Jordan level of dominance that we are witnessing Patrick Mahomes have on the NFL. And, you know, when it comes to bad officiating, let's not make it seem like bad calls haven't been a thing since the beginning of time. Officiating has always been terrible, but the Chiefs aren't the only team that benefits from bad calls. There's been plenty of teams this year that have won games, that have lost games due to poor officiating. Poor officiating is just something that is a part of football, and yet people refuse to accept this. And another thing that really grinds my gears with how people continue to push this bullshit lie about the NFL rigging games in favor of the Kansas City Chiefs is that anytime somebody bets money on a team to win and they lose, the first thing they want to say is, oh, it's rigged. But if that team that they bet all that money on comes through and they win, oh, they're the GOAT. I love Patrick Mahomes. You know, there's a difference between the games being rigged and you just not making smart bets. You know, Vegas wins regardless of who wins and who loses. They're making money regardless. And Vegas doesn't have any reason to have to rig the outcome of these football games. And if you ever played football, you should know how difficult it truly is to rig a football game on any level, rather it be middle school, Pop Warner High School, or college ball. Like, rigging any kind of football game is incredibly hard to do because, for one, how do you know that you're going to be in position to call all of these penalties that's going to be advantageous to Kansas City being able to take advantage of it? You know, it's not like Kansas City hasn't lost in the postseason before. We make it seem like Kansas City just always has the refs on their side. Like, I get it. I do feel like there is a right to be skeptical about some of these calls because a lot of them do tend to go their way. But, you know, some of these reasons for why the NFL is rigged, it just doesn't make any sense to me because Kansas City has been in the AFC Championship every single year Mahomes has been the starter. So it really shouldn't be a surprise to anybody at this point. We saw Tom Brady do the same thing at the peak of the Patriots dynasty. You know, every sport has a run where you have this one team that's led by this one outstanding quarterback or this one outstanding player that is just so talented that he's able to carry this team past everybody else, along with good role players around him and good coaching. And that's what Patrick Mahomes has. Same thing with Tom Brady. You know, like, I don't think the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl every single season for the next decade. I do think after this year, depending on if they win or lose, this would be the last time we see Kansas City in a Super Bowl matchup for at least the next 6 to 7 years. So just because they keep on winning games in these weird fashions, it doesn't mean that the NFL is rigged, the NFL is scripted, because integrity is a big part of this game, all right? Not just with how it's played, but how it's viewed upon the public. And nobody would bet on the NFL if we all knew it was rigged. If it was rigged, then why isn't Kansas City always covering the point spread every single game they play? If it was rigged, why wasn't Kansas City undefeated? Hell, if it's rigged, why is Kansas City the poster team of the NFL right now and not America's team, the Dallas Cowboys, or a team in a bigger market like the Chicago Bears or the New York Jets or the New York Giants? If the NFL is truly rigged, like how you people keep claiming that it is, then we should see teams from bigger markets that have more success than what the Chiefs are having right now. This lie that the NFL is rigged and they're favoring the Kansas City Chiefs to win because they want to see more Taylor Swift on the screen to improve the ratings, it's just bullshit. It's bullshit. That's what it is. Excuse the profanity, but that's what it is. You just can't accept that the Chiefs are this good and they just find ways to win. So to make yourself feel better, you have to say it's rigged. Or because you lost money betting against the Chiefs, you got to say it's rigged to make your own self feel better. The NFL is not rigged. It's too hard, too complicated to rig a football game. It's not WWE where you choreograph, or however you say it, before the games. Everybody comes together and says, hey, in the third quarter, you're going to fumble in this spot. You're going to throw this interception at this point during the game with this amount of time left. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. Like, you can't script the NFL game, and it's really hard to rig one. It's a lot easier to rig an NBA game than it is to rig an NFL game, because you have less players on the court than what you do in the NFL game on the field 11-5. So it's a lot easier to rig the outcome of a basketball game, especially when you're giving away free points like free throws and goaltending. So of course, but even if you were to call like obvious holding penalties, or like if you were to call like a penalty on a team every single play, like the audience will catch on to what you're doing. The NFL is not rigged. The NFL makes money regardless of who's in the Super Bowl. And I'm pretty sure if the NFL really wanted to maximize all of their profits and viewership, they will put the biggest, most well-recognized teams in the Super Bowl every year, and not Kansas City. We only recognize Kansas City now because of what they've been over these last couple of years. But if we really were going down this rabbit hole that the NFL is truly rigged, then we should see more of the NFL's bigger brands, biggest markets playing in the Super Bowl. Shedeur Sanders is the most polarizing draft prospect in the history of the NFL draft. With the hype and high expectations that is going to be bestowed upon him because of the last name on his jersey, everybody has an opinion about him. You either think he's going to dominate and ball out in the NFL, or you think this dude is going to fall off the face of the planet, and the only reason he's getting all this hype is because of nepotism, because of who his pops was. What do I think about Shedeur Sanders? How good do I believe Shedeur Sanders is going to be in the NFL? Look, to be honest with you, I believe Shedeur Sanders is guaranteed to be a top 10 quarterback in the National Football League. With his dad being Deion Sanders, I just don't see how in his genes he could be a bust. This guy has seen his dad, when he was a kid growing up, put in the work, see all of the blood, sweat, and tears that it took to be one of the greatest football players ever. And you don't get as far as what Shedeur Sanders has if you didn't have any game at all. He was one of the top 3 best quarterbacks in college football last season statistically. He put Colorado on the map along with Travis Hunter. Him and Travis are easily 2 of the best players that ever play in Boulder. And Shedeur Sanders, for him to put up the numbers that he has, regardless of having a terrible offensive line his past 2 years, he has shown the ability that no matter what the circumstances is, no matter what the situation in the game is, you can always count on him to come through. He just finds a way to succeed. And there are certain players that I give the benefit of a doubt to, even if they don't necessarily have a skill set that says they would translate to becoming an elite quarterback. Look, I get it. Shedeur isn't the most impressive quarterback prospect that we've seen. He doesn't have a great arm. He isn't the athlete that you expect him to be for somebody that shares the same blood and DNA as Deion Sanders, but he's a safe quarterback prospect. One of the safer quarterback prospects that I've seen come out in recent memory, because he's good in the most basic areas needed to be a functional starting quarterback in the NFL. He has good decision making. He's accurate throwing the football. He also has good decision making as well. Doesn't make a lot of turnover worthy plays. Doesn't make a lot of crucial mistakes. And also, he elevated Colorado to a level that they weren't at since the freaking 80s and 90s. And he's one of the best players to ever play for the University of Colorado, along with Travis Hunter. And he was one of the best quarterbacks in college football over the past 2 years, playing behind one of the worst offensive lines in the entirety of the nation, and yet still putting up godly numbers. Yeah, the stats are a little bit inflated because, Dion was trying to stat pad his numbers a little bit, but you don't have the resume that Shedeur has had, dominating at Jackson State, dominating at Colorado, if you weren't good. The numbers speak for themselves, and the film speaks for itself too. Like, when I see Shedeur, I see somebody that has a low ceiling but incredibly high floor. At his worst, Shedeur Sanders is going to be a top 15 quarterback. If he ends up not living up to his potential, you have another Kirk Cousins or another Dak Prescott. But if he ends up being as good as what I believe him to be going into the NFL, I definitely expect him to be a top 10 quarterback. Could he be an elite quarterback? Maybe, but I'm more so willing to bank on him being a really good quarterback. I think that being a really good quarterback means a lot, because that means that you could win a playoff game for a really good quarterback. You could win a Super Bowl with a really good quarterback. But Shedeur Sanders, to me, just looks like a lock to be a good NFL quarterback. At worst, he's top 10. At his best, he could be anywhere from the best to one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the game. Shedeur just has that X factor that you look for out of the quarterback position. You're looking for somebody that teammates trust, somebody that no matter how bad things may be going during the game, you believe that as long as he has a chance to win, you're never out. As long as he has a chance to get the ball in his hands last, you're never out of it. And that's what we see with Shedeur Sanders. There were so many times these last couple of years, especially this past season at Colorado, where Shedeur pulled a win out of his ass. With the way the game had went against Baylor, they should have lost that game. But Shedeur Sanders ends up making a great play, makes a great Hail Mary throw to LaJohntay, gets the game in the overtime, and then Travis Hunter makes a big fumble to eventually seal it. Like, Travis Hunter didn't make Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur Sanders made Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur helped Travis Hunter win the Heisman. You just can't win the Heisman with anybody throwing you the ball at quarterback. And there's a reason why Shedeur Sanders finished top 10 in Heisman voting. Shedeur is being overhated because of Deion Sanders. People are taking out their hate on Deion Sanders on Shedeur Sanders. And it's just so unfair to me. You have to separate the kid from the father. The sins of Deion Sanders should not be on Shedeur. Shedeur hasn't done too many things to warrant always being classified as a locker room cancer, a red flag. We got guys like Jalen Carter, who damn near was responsible for killing one of his teammates drafted in the top 10, and yet nobody cares about it. I haven't seen anything about Shedeur Sanders getting in any accidents off the field, him getting arrested off the field. For somebody who has so many character issues or red flags as what people claim he has, I don't really see anything from Shedeur that he's done off the field that screams, oh yeah, like this dude is just going to be a complete headache in the NFL. He's going to get his second contract and become Antonio Brown. Like, people just don't like Shedeur because he is outspoken like his father, but a little bit more quiet about it. And he just has this cockiness about him that really pisses people off. But listen, I want my quarterback to be cocky. I want my quarterback to be confident, because if you're not confident that you can make every throw, if you're not confident that you can elevate my team, that you can help elevate my franchise to a Super Bowl, then why the hell do I want you in the first place? I want you to believe that you're the best at what you do. I want you to believe in yourself. I want you to be cocky. I want you to be arrogant, because these are all the things that make Shedeur Sanders the player that he is mentally. Richard Sherman was cocky. People didn't like it. People don't like outspoken people. Nobody likes somebody that truly speaks their mind, and nobody likes somebody that's insanely flashy, that's in your face. Shedeur is in your face with it. He's flexing his rollie in your face. You know, he has the nice smile with those big bright white teeth. You know, like people, I understand why people can kind of get turned off to Shedeur Sanders, but to me, I just think that the whole character issues are just nonsense against Shedeur to try to knock his value down. Any team that needs a quarterback that passes on Shedeur Sanders in the 2025 NFL draft is making a huge mistake. Unless you're passing on Shedeur for Cam Ward, you know, that's the only quarterback who can hold a candlestick in this draft class to Shedeur Sanders. But if you need a quarterback and you pass on Shedeur Sanders in the top 10, your team is making a huge mistake because you're passing on somebody that's guaranteed to give you top 10 quarterback play. Y'all are overthinking this. Like, Shedeur knows what he has to do to succeed in this league. And like Jalen Hurts and Lamar, when they came out, they were two prospects that, you know, the physical traits were there. You know, good arm, good athletes, but were they going to be accurate to succeed at the NFL level? To me, I never questioned if Lamar and Jalen were going to succeed in the NFL because I believed in them due to their intangibles, because of their character, because I knew that they were going to be one of the first guys in, last guys out of the building. Intangibles mean so much when it comes to evaluating how these prospects turn out in the NFL. And 9 times out of 10, when you have a guy that comes from a football bloodline as rich as what Shedeur does, being the son of Deion Sanders, one of the most recognizable athletes in the world, like, come on, man. Some quarterbacks are just destined to succeed. And Shedeur is one of them ones. He just has it all in terms of what you're looking for out of the face of your franchise. Somebody that's going to sell fans in the seats. He's going to sell merch. The fan base is going to rally behind him. Everybody's going to be talking about him. Like, Shedeur is built to handle the NFL. He's been preparing for the spotlight, preparing for what's to come in the National Football League his past 2 years in Boulder. You know, yeah, he's not the best quarterback prospect we've seen compared to what came out in 2024 and 2023. But, you know, I like Shedeur Sanders with the fact that he's not flashy because he knows who he is and he's not going to try to be something that he's not. He knows what his skill set is, what he does best, and how to get the most out of what he can produce the most.